All right. All right, so main points, obviously we've been very wet as of late. Today, thankfully, has been a little bit of a break from the more steadier, persistent rainfall, but unfortunately we do have another round of rain that's expected to develop later on tonight, move in to the area and continue throughout much of the day on Thursday. This, obviously, we have ongoing river and stream flooding. This will continue at least through the weekend, potentially into early part of next week, even after the rain, this last round of rain affects the area. We are looking at colder air moving in later tomorrow through tomorrow night and into Friday. We are expecting much of the area to be at or below 32 degrees Thursday night, by late Thursday night into Friday morning. We'll talk about that here in just a second. Wintry precipitation potential on Thursday and Thursday night across the higher elevations of North Georgia continues. We'll address that as well. What we're looking for up there is periods of rain, potentially freezing rain at the onset of precipitation developing tomorrow morning, and then eventually transitioning to some snow before ending tomorrow afternoon. So those are the main points with this briefing. First thing I wanted to talk about, just looking at the radar, pretty quiet out there. The little echoes that you see across the middle part of the state are really not reaching the ground. But if you look back towards Texas and Louisiana, that's the next wave of moisture and energy that will be approaching the area and affecting us later tonight into tomorrow. Current temperatures, it's been cool. Much of the area, especially in North Georgia, has been in the upper 40s to lower 50s, and across our southern counties, we've warmed up into the lower to mid 60s. Not expecting a whole lot of change in temperature over the next few hours, and then things will certainly cool off a little bit tonight and definitely through the day tomorrow. Latest river and stream conditions, we have about 24 points that are either in flood or forecasted to go into flood over the next couple of days, basically from the rain that we have seen and the rain that's forecasted to occur later tonight through the day tomorrow. Good news is most of them is like the main stem, larger rivers. Certainly the smaller, faster responding creeks and streams may fluctuate a little bit tomorrow based on just depending on how much rain we get and how much rain falls in a short period of time. But overall, you can see across much of our north and middle Georgia area, we have points that are either at or expected to go into flood over the next couple of days, and that should continue through the weekend. Even when the drier air sort of returns through the weekend, we're still going to be dealing with this river flooding, unfortunately. I mentioned we've been talking about this. The grounds are so saturated from all the rain that we've seen over the past week to 10 days that any additional rainfall that we have is just going to run off and really not be absorbed by the ground that's already saturated. So that's what leads to the higher rate of flooding, the elevated threat of flooding across the area, what we've been seeing over the last couple of days. Okay, so how much rain are we expecting? Generally speaking, basically along and south of I-20, we're going to probably see another 1 to 2 inches with isolated higher amounts. That's with the this next wave coming through tomorrow. North of I-20, lighter amounts, but still any additional rainfall can pose a little bit of exacerbated issues with the flooding and some of the streams and rivers. But the higher amounts, the heaviest rain access with this last round moving through this week is expected to be mainly across our middle Georgia counties from Columbus to Macon, and then points east towards Swainsboro and Dublin, Vidalia area. Okay, let's transition a little bit to talk about the winter weather potential. We have gone ahead, if you haven't seen already, we've issued a winter weather advisory for basically that 7 or 8 counties in our north central, northeast Georgia area. And I don't have this on the graphic, but Greenville-Spartanburg office and the Morristown office has agreed, and they've issued a winter weather advisory as well for the potential to see some wintry precipitation tomorrow into tomorrow evening. So the other surrounding offices have come on board and have issued winter weather advisories around the area that we have out at the moment. So basically the advisory goes into effect tomorrow morning around 5 o'clock. And then we have it going through about 1 a.m. Friday morning. So late Thursday night basically is when, at this point, we have the advisory dropping off. And we expect by then that most of the heavier precipitation is going to be well east of the area by tomorrow, like late tomorrow night. What we are expecting as the light rain approaches and moves into the area early tomorrow morning, there's the potential across the highest elevations to initially see some freezing rain. So that could be a problem initially, and then eventually as the heavier rain precipitation comes in and the colder air starts to come in from the north and west, that freezing rain across the area is expected, across the advisory area is expected to transition to more of a rain snow mix and eventually all snow, potentially for a few hours tomorrow afternoon before ending. So as far as amounts go, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, for ice accumulations just in the highest elevations, maybe upwards of 1/10 of an inch, and then on top of that, we could see anywhere from 1 to 2 inches of snow in the highest elevations and ridge tops of the mountains there in northeast Georgia. Now, another thing I wanted to note, those of you from Dade, Walker, Catoosa, Murray County, in northwest Georgia, the higher elevations, we are expecting to see some wintry precipitation, like a rain snow mix, maybe briefly transition to all snow before ending tomorrow. We don't have you in a winter weather advisory at this point because we think any accumulations are going to be confined to the highest of elevations there across like Lookout Mountain and some of the higher peaks there, closer to the Blue Ridge area. So it's something to watch. You know, just there might be some minor impacts across the highest of elevations, but overall we don't expect any major concerns or accumulations in the lower valleys across northwest Georgia at this point. But definitely something to monitor through the night. And if things start to evolve and it's a little bit colder, maybe we see that transition to snow happen sooner. Certainly, you know, winter weather advisory is not out of the question for northwest Georgia. Okay, so looking at the freezing rain, I mentioned at the onset of precipitation early tomorrow morning, anywhere between 5 and 8 a.m. is when we expect the precipitation to come in. Where you see the orange kind of areas along the highest of elevations, the ridge tops there, coming from towns, Union County, parts of Lumpkin, Fannin, Gilmer, even northern Dawson County, that's where we could see a brief period of freezing rain, and that's if temperatures are at or below freezing. As the rain is starting to fall, that's when we could be dealing with some problems there. So for a few hours in the morning, we're going to have to watch that potential. Confidence is not extremely high that this is going to happen, but we've seen enough that there could be that brief period of some freezing rain up in the higher elevations before everything transitions over to rain and snow. So speaking of that, freezing rain, eventually transitioning to a rain snow mix between 10 a.m. and noon tomorrow. Expecting pretty much all snow likely in the highest of elevations. Mentioned amounts being, generally speaking, in the advisory area being less than 1 inch, but over the highest of elevations, 1 to 2 inches are certainly possible. The heaviest precipitation is expected to end west to east between about 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon and 7 tomorrow evening. And then here is the latest forecast for snow amounts based on what we're seeing right now. Generally speaking, the lighter blue colors are up to 1 inch. The darker blue along the higher ridge tops and elevations are about 1 to 2, up to 2 inches of snow, and that's basically through the day tomorrow. So that's, and then there's a little bit of some accumulation in the higher elevations in Dade and Walker County. We do have a special weather statement sort of addressing that. So that's what we're expecting right now. Maybe a little bit of accumulation in those areas over Lookout Mountain. Okay, to sort of on the backside of the system, we wanted to address that as the heaviest of precipitation moves east of the area by tomorrow evening. There is some lingering moisture on the backside of this low pressure system. As the colder air starts to invade across north of Georgia, there could be some very light precipitation lingering. Some of that could change or be some light rain, but change over to some light snow or flurries tomorrow evening, and some of that wintry precipitation could affect parts of metro Atlanta. At this point, we're not expecting any major impacts. We're not expecting any accumulations, but if there's a few flakes out there at this point, wouldn't be surprised that actually occurs for a couple of hours during the evening hours tomorrow night. So something to watch. We're not, again, the moisture is going to be much more shallow than what we're going to see earlier in the day. So as far as intensity of precipitation, not expecting a whole lot out of this on the backside. Now, the other issue we'll have to deal with is the potential to see some patchy black ice, especially over bridges and overpasses late tomorrow night into Friday morning as temperatures drop below freezing. And I'll talk about that here moving forward. So Next slide has a temperature graphic, basically from tomorrow morning around 7 o'clock in the morning. Most of the area is going to be generally in the 40s, with 30s in the higher elevations of North Georgia as that precipitation starts to move in from west to east across the area. Notice by tomorrow afternoon, temperatures actually drop. So as we get that rain, that precipitation overspreading the area, it's actually going to cool the air mass enough, because initially it starts off, it's pretty dry, and that's going to allow the temperatures to fall a few degrees as the heavier precipitation moves in during the morning hours tomorrow. So by midday tomorrow afternoon, much of the area is going to be in the mid to upper 30s, around 40 degrees, and the highest of elevations in North Georgia, where we're expecting more of a wintry precipitation, they could be down into the lower 30s or even a couple of degrees below that. So we move forward. By 10 o'clock tomorrow evening, you could start to see the colder air mass behind the front come in from the northwest. Temperatures are going to start to drop at or below freezing late tomorrow evening. And then overnight, after midnight towards daybreak on Friday morning, the graphic that you see on the right is basically our minimum temperature graphic for Friday morning. So much of the area is expected to be at or below freezing, and a good chunk of the area is going to be in the mid to upper 20s, which is several degrees below freezing. So obviously, if there's any residual water, standing water or anything on the roadways, especially the secondary roadways, the bridges and overpasses, this is where we could be dealing with some black ice issues even after the precipitation ends Thursday night. So something to be prepared for if you're out and about early Friday morning, certainly for the morning rush hour. We'll continue to fine tune things through the night tonight into the day tomorrow as the system evolves. Okay, one thing we wanted to show, this is sort of an experimental product, but we haven't had a whole lot of winter weather over the last couple of seasons to really showcase this. But based on the snow, freezing rain potential that's expected to develop during the day tomorrow, this is where it kind of pulls everything together and shows impacts. So it's definitely been, it's a system that's been modified, and a lot of climatology has been thrown into this. So what you're seeing is basically for North Georgia, where we expect any impacts to develop potentially tomorrow based off of the forecast today. So generally speaking, limited to minor impacts. So we're not expecting any major widespread impacts across the area, but definitely, especially in the winter weather advisory area, the counties that are under winter weather advisories at this point, there's definitely going to be an inconvenience. You could see some slick spots over the roads due to the snow and potentially the freezing rain early tomorrow morning. So this changes every time the forecast is kind of modified or adjusted based off of a predicted model precipitation type and amounts. It actually takes into account the black ice potential, flash freeze kind of thing. So potentially, if we're looking at a black ice potential tomorrow night into Friday morning, some of these impacts may stretch further south towards the north side of Metro Atlanta tomorrow night into Friday. So we may share this through an email later tonight or into the through the day tomorrow if it does change. But just wanted to kind of bring this to everybody's attention that it is out there. We'll see how it does. All right. So in summary, again, we're expecting another round of rain to move in later tonight and continue throughout much of the day tomorrow. Heaviest access of rain is expected to be generally south of I-20 at this point, particularly between about Columbus and Macon. Pretty much everyone is extremely saturated. Grounds are extremely saturated right now. So any additional rainfall is just going to kind of worsen the river and stream flooding that exists at this time, and look for that river and stream flooding to persist through the weekend at the least, even after the precipitation ends and we see some drier air move in. Coldest air moves in Thursday night into Friday, and that's when we expect much of the area to drop at or below 32 by Friday morning. Talked about that wintry precipitation, even though it's confined to the far northern counties of Georgia, is definitely something that those of you up in that area could be some impacts due to potential for freezing rain that eventually transitions over to some snow before ending tomorrow afternoon. And then last bullet I put in there was that there's some good news, some light at the end of the tunnel, that after we get through tomorrow night, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday looks dry, and we may actually see the sun pop out. So hopefully we can get through the next 24 to 36 hours, and the conditions it'll be cooler, but at least the sun will be out, and I don't think anybody's going to be complaining about that. So with that, we'll just sort of wrap up. We are not planning any additional formal briefings at this point, but we will keep everybody up to date through, if we send out any emails, certainly through our forecasts on our webpage, and additional information through social media or NWS chat.